The virtual CISO moment is brought to you by vCISO Services, a leading provider of quality and experienced virtual chief information security officers for small and mid-sized businesses. Check them out at vcisoservices.com. Hi, I'm Greg Schaefer, and welcome to the Virtual CISO Moment. We're here at RETR3AT, the conference at Montreat College in North Carolina, and Lin Clark joins us. Lin, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate being here.
So I know you're involved with the Carolina Cyber Center. Could you talk a little bit about what you do there and how your path on how you got there?
Yeah, sure. So the SOC is multifaceted. Basically, they were looking for an opportunity to develop products and services that they could sell to harden the Western North Carolina area, as well as branch out into areas where breaches could occur. So that clients from small to medium enterprises, mom and pops, maybe in some of the underserved areas that might be looking for an opportunity to have guidance in cybersecurity would be able to come and work with us, and that's part of the SOC's mandate, if you will. On one side is working with students. So because we have an academic program here and we have a certification program as well, a pipeline that facilitates that for individuals that may not be looking for an academic pathway, they have interns that come out of that are looking to maybe get into the nuts and bolts of the side of the house, bridge the gap between theory and knowledge, and start developing practical skill. And so the SOC is split into those two mandates, providing services such as SaaS, SOC as a service, monitoring, penetration testing assessments, these kind of things that we can offer to businesses so that they can harden their infrastructure. And then on the other side, we have the interns that can come from anywhere in North Carolina, provided that they fall into the grant coverage, and they can come and work with us and learn about another 200 hours or so where they get paid to learn more about the blue side, the red side, and the purple side.
Okay, and have you always been in cyber, or is this another thing?
Yeah, I'm pretty fortunate. I grew up in Silicon Valley, in and out of the city, so I've been around computers my entire life. In fact, my first computer that I owned was given to me by an individual who had been convicted of hacking, and he was in our neighborhood. I knew him growing up.
Did you wipe the computer, or did you
He did.
look? Oh, I was going to say, or did you look in there to see what he had?
Oh, of course I looked. Although we could,
Did he do a 7-pass wipe?
Right, I think it was like DES back then or something like that.
Yeah.
He was basically told by the court that he had to get rid of all his computers for X amount of years. And I was still, a teenager at that time, or just on the cusp. I think I was 12. And he gave me and a couple of the other kids in the neighborhood computers. And I started my hacking journey, if you will, when I was 12. So I've been around it a very long time. And it moved into profession. I served in the military. I worked with government, NGOs, blue chip companies, SMEs across the world. Lived all over the world. Been to more than 60 countries and consulting. And so basically I just sort of moved into it. But it wasn't cybersecurity back then. Right? We're talking 80s.
Yeah, they didn't have a
90s.
term for it. In fact, really, it was like data processing, and it was just a part of like protecting stuff.
Yeah, it went from IT security to information security in my field. I ran an entire IT department in Silicon Valley at one point. It didn't exist, right? And then as I went up into academia, and I do advocate going to school for clarity. I'm a GED high school dropout, so they said to me, you could get a high school diploma and make up 4 years in 4 hours. I was like, count me in. Are you kidding? I'm like, absolutely. Later on, I found out I actually did well, and I became an autodidact and also did formal education. So I got a couple master's degrees, and I'm working on my PhD. So
really?
Yeah, I'm pretty blessed.
PhD in what?
It's in cybersecurity.
Okay.
It's in defense and security with a focus on cyber. So I'm at a rather decent institution. So my first master's was an MBA, but I focused on counter-economic espionage. My second master was an MSc in global security with a focus on counterterrorism and U.S. homeland security. My third master's, I know.
Oh my!
Yeah, I know. Trust me, it's been a long 30 years. Is essentially in advanced security with digital forensics, and my PhD is a thesis requirement that's focused predominantly on defense and security, specifically counterterrorism and how terrorists and cybercriminals currently use the internet and allied technologies.
Oh my, that's I'm sure you have a wealth of information,
I
and
got a little bit.
could probably sit here for about like 3 hours and just scratch the surface.
We can have some fun with it.
Now, so you actually are the what is your actual title? SOC director, or
Well, it's like Director of Cybersecurity Technology.
but you run the SOC.
I do indeed.
Now, you said something which I have to admit I've known about the Carolina Cyber Center and about Retreat, but I didn't realize that. I thought it was just a training, the SOC. I did not realize that you
Right.
also offer services to small and mid-sized businesses in the Western Carolina region.
Yes, that's an emerging opportunity for us. President Paul, in his wisdom, was smart enough, 7-8 years ago, to see the writing on the wall. Not all leaders in academia, and certainly not all leaders in industry, have paid attention to that, and some of them are getting caught flat-footed, as the case may be. However, President Paul recognized early on that this was going to be a need, and he wanted to move us into that realm. So it's not just academia, but the question becomes, how do we take the best and brightest of our production, the best and brightest students, and they range the gamut from high school leavers all the way up to mid-career individuals who are looking to change, right? So it varies. We have people in every age group, every academic background. But one of the unique things about Montreat is that we approach it from a very specific ethical standpoint, right? Our perception is, and that's one of the reasons why I came here, is because the mission is very aligned with morality, doing the right thing. And cybersecurity is such a big risk industry, right? We think about privacy, access to finances, access to just about anything. I mean, everything we do, right? I mean, think about what's on your phone alone.
Right.
And so as we're training these individuals to protect us, we want to make sure we're bringing the right people in and that we're giving them the right guidances. And President Paul was smart enough to think about that early on. In fact, he has a book coming out on it. And the SOC itself, he asked the question, well, what can we provide to the community? And that was certainly him and his advisors and other people that are way smarter than me and above my pay grade. But
I don't know about being way smarter with 3 masters and a PhD on the way,
You know what? It just means I'm dogged. That's all it means. I'm like a dog with a bone, right? I just keep going. I'm not that smart, but I'm very, very persistent.
Well, you said something that I caught. Of course, we're out here in the lobby of the conference.
Absolutely.
And
lots of people here.
Well, it's a little bit more subdued right now because sessions are in play, but when there are more people, I overheard one of the students saying that they had just completed their cybersecurity code of ethics,
right.
Something or another. So you do focus a lot on that part of the morality, the code of ethics, and all that.
Yeah, you got to have a central, what is it that guides you? I mean, there are people that will enter this industry, and indeed do, that are on the criminal side.
Right.
They have no integrity. They're looking for a quick buck. They're the people that are going out to your businesses and encrypting your technology. And you might say to yourself, well, why? Who cares? It's like, I don't have anything that's important that I need to protect. Well, it's important to you. And if it's important to you, that means that you're at risk because it's a way for them to get money. It's a way for them to take advantage of you and extort money in exchange.
Right.
Right? So when we look at it from that perspective, that changes things. But then these guys on the criminal side, these guys on the terrorist side, these guys that are using it for cyber warfare, they have a different code. They have a different morality. And it's important that we bring the right people in so they don't use these things for evil, if you will.
Well, a mantra, I guess you could say, that I have in cybersecurity is that for me, the secret for being successful in cybersecurity is that if you have a heart of a servant, you will always be successful.
That's true.
And so I really like to see that. I think that we need to emphasize more as an industry on the service aspect and the code of ethics side. You obviously see an eclectic mix of people working in the SOC. And what, from what you have seen, what are a few qualities of students that you've had that really positions them well for success?
I don't have an easy answer for that. I think, so could I just give some recommendations?
Yes, that's fine.
So what I learned early on, I think probably the best way to say it is, I was talking about, I'm not the smartest guy in the room. Now, on paper, I look brilliant. Right, because that's what our perceptions are.
Right.
You have a degree, you must be smart. You have a couple
Right.
masters. Well, I didn't.
Well,
do
that's
3
what
masters,
I thought.
Right. But the reality of it is that all of us have aptitude. The question is, where do we apply that aptitude? And a lot of us don't know what outcomes we're looking for. Right. So I'm very, very specific about what I'm trying to accomplish. If I said to you, hey, what are your goals for the next 1 year? 3 years, 5 years, and long term. You may have some. Some people don't, right? And
Well, at my age, it's living.
I'm starting to understand that. I really, truly am.
10 years, I would like to be alive. That's
I
my
would like
goal.
to make it to the next day. That would be fantastic. I'm checking my cholesterol. If you're not, you should.
Yes. Amen.
So, I mean, those are the things that I ask students. I'm like, what is it you want to do? Because cybersecurity isn't just pen testing.
No,
right?
no. It is nothing like when we were, quote unquote, growing up. I mean,
Right.
It is such an eclectic field. I joke that it's like we didn't have red team, blue team, whatever.
Right.
That I mean, we called it troubleshooting.
Yeah.
Basically, is all that it was. I mean, we did whatever we had to do to make it work and to test to make sure it's working.
Yeah.
So I guess making it work. I can't even remember which is offensive, defensive. Blue team is offensive and red team is defensive.
Opposite.
I always get that wrong. Yeah. But I mean, we would do the same thing just
Yeah.
to make sure. You set up a system, you secure it, and then you test against it,
Yeah.
usually running something like Nmap or something like that to make sure that you had secured it, and the other tests and all that
Sure.
as well.
Well, we stole that from the military, right? I mean, so the Navy SEALs, members of CAG, I believe, which is Delta Force in civilian parlance, organizations like that have been responsible for little sub-teams of testing military installations, especially like PRP, which is securing nuclear weapons. You develop your defense, you put it together, and then you have to have somebody test it, right? Those are called red teams. And traditionally, it's because blue was the United States, red was not.
Okay.
And so a red team
Because
pretended to be the
I
enemy.
was just about to ask, why did they just call it offensive, defensive? But and for whatever reason, I always have a problem understanding that. But United States is blue, so that's going to be defensive.
That was, right? So
Okay.
that's how it sort of came about. It's the same thing with white hat, black hat. White hat, black hat.
Well, white hat, black hat, I could understand it.
right,
You know,
well,
but-
come cowboy movies, right?
Well, it was black and white too. It's
That's
like,
right.
you know.
You got to have a way to differentiate the characters.
But then they also of course have like gray hat and all that in there
Yeah.
in the middle. But
Absolutely. So I was saying, just have some goals. Know what your outcome is. If I said to you, do you want to go to Paris? That's one of your goals. You have to break that down,
right,
right? And people don't. They go, oh, I want to go to Paris, and then they never go to Paris.
because they don't know that they have to get a passport, they
Correct.
have to have money, they
Absolutely.
have to schedule time off, they have
100%.
to have the money, they have to have the money, and they have to have the money.
That's correct.
So,
And that's very much cybersecurity.
yeah. Well, I think that it's sometimes difficult to have a roadmap because cyber continuously changes. So
It does,
part
it's
of your
dynamic.
roadmap probably has to be remember to be flexible.
Yeah, absolutely.
And constantly reevaluate your roadmap, and maybe a year. I know for me, I didn't even start out wanting to be in cyber. Never mind the fact that it didn't exist. I wasn't even starting in IT. I was a totally different career field
Right.
that I was going for. But eventually, and then I was never wanting to get out of networking. And the whole idea of ever being a CISO. But I was flexible. That when opportunities presented itself. I think one of the greatest lessons I learned there is just like you have to be prepared for those opportunities.
Yeah.
So you may not want to become like, say, a CISO.
Right.
But maybe if a CISO needs to have a master's degree, then
Hence the reason you would get one.
get the master's degree,
Yeah.
and then maybe something will come out. So
And that's corresponded exactly to what we were talking about, isn't it?
exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't know where you want to go, any road will take you there. But if you have a plan, then you start to break down into component parts, and then you check off the boxes where required. And that's
Right.
dynamic, and you have to be sensitive to that.
So plans for the SOC?
Yeah.
What
Lots of plans.
plans that you can talk about for the
Yeah.
SOC?
So, as I said, President Paul has some very specific goals that he
Yeah.
wants to accomplish. So, we know what those objectives are. Hence, back to what I was talking about, we know what our objectives, our goals are. And because we know what those objectives are, we'll start rolling them out. So, we will be providing services in a litany of areas, assessments, for example. And those assessments could be anything. They could be dealing with Sarbanes-Oxley. They could be dealing with HIPAA. As you know, there's a lot of frameworks out there, and if you're not familiar with it, you should probably check out frameworks.
Yeah. And it seems like every week there's another one.
There is.
So-
They change. We were talking about dynamic. They change all the time, and it's important to know them. I'm not saying go read 800 all the way through at NIST.
Unless
because-
you have insomnia.
yeah, unless you just can't sleep because of 5 seconds. So, so yeah, that's what we're doing. We're really in the strategic phase. That's got to work its way down operational and at the tactical levels, and that's currently under development. And so as we become more sensitive, well, we are very sensitive to the community's needs. We will roll out projects and services that fit those needs.
And I assume that your plans are to continue to build the SOC and also is the PhD going to be your last degree?
Probably not. Probably not. My wife is like, seriously, dude, are you going to stop? No. Some people have addictions to television. Some people have other things, right? I love school. I love to learn. Skill stacking, if you're not familiar with it, it will open up doors for you, my friends. Learn how to skill stack. It'll change everything for you. So that's what I believe in, and that's where I spend a lot of my time.
And how would you define skill stacking?
So it's basically learning different things that are synergistic in nature, right? To use the term synergy, basically it creates a more functional whole than the independent parts.
So I think one example might be, I've talked about this before, that I've said that one of the more impactful certifications I ever got for my career had nothing to do with cybersecurity. It was Toastmasters.
Oh yeah,
and it helps with communication. It helps with listening,
100%.
and it helps with soft skills. And I think that you need to have the soft skills so much in cybersecurity as well.
I agree with you, and that's really it. You're nailing it, right? That soft skill that you developed, which public speaking is one of the worst things in the world. They rank it up to divorce, right? So. So when you think about it, people have a legitimate fear, an actual phobia of public speaking. But Toastmasters, wonderful organization, I did it when I was young, helps you learn how to articulate, how to make eye contact, mannerism, how not to say so there's no dead air space, all of these things that are important that then lead to podcasting.
Right, and I have to say, first of all, I mess up on the ums and the so's. So was always my worst one. And I just did it. It gets in your head when you talk about that.
It absolutely does.
But every time when I start to do, like, say, the podcast, I mean, even if I'm in the comfort of my own office, I have that little bit of anxiety because this is public speaking.
It is.
And, of course, never having done it in public like this before, it's like I've been kind of freaking out all day.
Pretty cool.
But it's great just to have, like, the conversation and the flow and all of that.
Yeah.
With all that stuff that you're doing, the academia and the SOC, and what do you do to decompress?
Yeah, really good question. So there's a high turnover in this industry, as there are in other industries. I mean, I would rank us up somewhere around air traffic control in terms of the stress levels at times.
A lot of times it depends on the position and the company you're working for, but definitely, yeah.
Absolutely. So my advice is find something that brings you joy, that where you find comfort. I'm very lucky. I have a wonderful family. I've been married a very, very long time, 27 years. I've got 2 kids. One's an adult and one's 2.5.
Oh my, that's a difference.
Yep, 24 years gap between my kids. Being with them, spending time with them, quality time, because once it's a currency, right?
Right.
Once you spend it, you don't get that time back. We can't just make more of it. So for me, I decompress spending time with people that matter to me, and doing quality things and quantity things. Both matter. And for you, who knows? It might be watching television or composing music. Find what brings you joy and spend time in that, and learn to turn off a little bit.
Awesome advice. Well, Lin, thank you so much for joining us today.
Lovely having me.
Appreciate your time.
I appreciate it.
Stay secure.